Hey everybody, back and playing d4 or d5, depending on the color I get. d5, playing the Scandinavian defense, I think. Feeling a little better. What the heck? I'm used to either this move, or this move. Against this one, I don't remember. It's been a while. Well, the whole point is to take it with the knight, so that way this move doesn't come with tempo on the queen. So let's do that. Let's see, is there any... I think it's okay. I could be wrong though. If they go here, I think I need to respond immediately. Probably bring the bishop there. Alright, I will retreat the bishop this way. Let's castle. And yeah, we'll just play from here, I guess. I could take if I want to try to infiltrate. But they go there instead. I have to do something about this bishop as well. My first thought is to exchange it. This is technically kind of a bad bishop. This is conversely a good bishop. So that's not the worst thing in the world. I said let's go for it. I could go here if I wanted. Let's go here. I'm threatening to take. Or if they take, then I capture with tempo on their queen. And after they move their queen, I can then capture the knight. It might not win a piece. There might be something tricky about applying pressure to the knight that's pinned to the queen or something. Oh, but it wouldn't be pinned if they take first, so yeah. And also I'm just threatening to just take it straight up. I think I mentioned. They do take. Do they have any way to protect the knight? Because I am threatening the queen. They would have to go here, maybe? Actually, I did miss that move. Okay. I could go here. Let's see. If this pawn didn't exist, I would totally take the knight and then get this sweet fork, but alas. I want to move a little quickly. If I go here, I suspect they'll move the knight there. Or, sorry, the rook there. I have to be careful about my knight getting trapped, because it can't escape easily. And that kind of worries me. Although I could jump down there, but it's getting trapped is the issue. What if I took? No. Not enough there. This move is still a bit scary. I think it makes more sense to jump back in some direction. Let's go here. They do have this option. It will come with a check. I don't think it's worth it right now. But if this pawn moved, so I have to be careful about that. In the future, I'd like to think of how I can kick the queen away. Like have an attack, they move. Try to, it just doesn't seem to work. I'm gonna move the queen up. If they go here, threatening that, I can push the pawn, and my knight's still defended by this one. So that's not an issue. Although, move, they could take. No, they can't, because the queen would hang. Let's see. It's a bit tricky. I would like to attack this pawn with the knight somehow, but I don't see how it could be done. If I pushed, the queen moves back, then what? If I push, okay. They move there preemptively. I could push this pawn. The queen can move here, here, or here, actually. Not a huge fan of any. Let's bring the other knight into the game. Or into, this side of the board. That seems to be where the action is. Also supports my knight. What do I want to do with the rooks? The rook here could potentially support a pawn push. Alternatively, the pawn push could lead to a rook lift, which is another idea. Not really sure what I'm doing with this rook, though. So maybe, I don't know. I can move the queen here, offer a trade, but I don't see how that benefits my position. I'm tempted to go here. I could do this as well. No. So one thing I am looking at is how I could take... If the rook was not able to recapture, then the pawn would be pinned. I don't see how I can set that up other than moving the knight here. But I don't think that's so helpful. Although, I don't know if I like that either. If I pushed, they would take, this pawn hangs. If I pushed that way, I could go here. Not convinced of that either. I need to move. I need to move more quickly. If I go here, I'll recapture that way, and I'll live with it. Wait, I'm just moved it that way, though. I'll go here instead, then. it stops this pawn from pushing because the pawn would hang as it loses some of its support. I have the option to move back and hit the queen, although I don't think that's the greatest idea, but it's an option that exists. I win this square. Maybe I can use it to pressure, pressure this pawn later. Right? I move there, then I push here, try to move the queen away so I can get checkmate. Would be the idea. Instead, they capture. Important choice. How do I want to recapture? This way is more aggressive, but leaves me with a weakness. But I do like the idea of opening up my rook. It is pretty easy for them to defend that, though. And then I'm just left with this weakness. So instead, let's capture towards the center. Maybe I can do something like that in the future, but I'm not sure. I don't hate that move. Threatening an infiltration. That might be on the to-do list in the near future. I was talking about pushing this pawn so that I can slide my rooks over at some point. Still don't get too much out of it. And that's not so great either. They just move back or something. It's not really helping me in any substantial way. I need to move more quickly. I could push, try to break up the pawn structure at some point. I don't feel like either me nor Inspector has really made a lot of ground in the position. It feels like we're both kind of unsure what to do. I could try to move the knight back and then up one of these ways. So like move here, push this pawn at a point, jump in there. Not the worst idea. If I move here, let's do it. They could push there, they could do this, they could do that. They could even do this. They have options. I'm still considering this move. I think I like the idea of bringing my knight in closer to the center. It would apply more pressure to this square if they defend it a different way rather than pushing it. Also targets this weak pawn. So, at some point I can move back, target it, maybe win a pawn if this rook ever moves. Few options, but I'm not really sure what the best one is. Okay, they move the rook. I could take the pawn. They would win it back pretty easily, though. Or would they? Well, if I took and they went this way, they would get the rook there. It would be, it'd be interesting. Just wipe out the entire queen side for both sides. Let's do it. Why not? Okay, I go here now. Okay, do I take the pawn? Do I push this one? Couple options. Sorry, I'm thinking right now. I could even jump back, and that sort of protects it. It's not my favorite move though. I do need to just make moves. I imagine this pawn will fall. Ooh, they could jump the knight in. That'd be a bit unpleasant, actually. Do I do this at some point? I'm kind of scared of the rook. Let's try to offer a trade. I'm really hoping they trade rooks. If they move back, they'd have to move back here or here. I do win the pawn, but this reopens as an option. Okay. I get a sort of fork, but they can escape. That might still be worth it. Let's do it. I don't have time to think. They have to take. This pawn is almost certainly falling. Unless... Oh, if they go here... What do I do with my knight? I would take this, and I would threaten the rook. And the taking the rook comes with check, so that way this rook doesn't hang, and I have time to move it away. So that's good. Thank you, d-pawn, for cutting off the connection between the rook and the queen in that line. Any other candidate moves? They could go here, but that doesn't really change anything. Again, these are ideas in, I don't want to say the distant future, but in some futures. They could go here, but then, well, okay, I would take the queen, but, you know, in the future. What if they move the queen here? I would probably... I don't know, I can move the... Also tricky. Not sure if I would take the trade or not. We're equal in material. I'm up a few seconds. Kind of surprising, but... They defend that way. They lose, yeah, they resigned. It's a blunder, it happens. They played well up to that point, I think. Or at least, equal to me, so maybe not that well, but, you know. Yeah, I think it was just a one-move blunder. Yeah, anyways, hope you enjoyed. And, yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!